Welcome to the Ultra World Podcast, the soccer fan's voice from the stands, with your hosts, Marc and Sean Castles, coming to you from Radio Waves Studios in New York City. Now, let's kick off the show.
Well, hi again, everybody. I'm Marc Sean Castles, indeed, alongside, and we are about to spin the Ultra Wheel, which today comes up on Tottenham Hotspurs. Love it. And for various reasons, the Spurs have been a little bit pushed to the fringes of the Premier League's Big Six.
That's right. Tottenham, based in North London, a staple in the Premier League. You know, Marc, they were the first club to win the double. We talked earlier about Manchester City winning the treble. There was, before the Euro Championships, there was the double, which is winning the League Cup and the FA Cup. And they were the first to do that in 1961. And then later on in 1963, not too far after, they became the first British team to win a major European trophy. Now, I know we hear that they don't really win the hardware of the Champions League. Back then, it was called the Winners' Cup. It's not the Champions League. It's not the Europa Cup. It's not the Europa Conference. But it's still a major European trophy. So they, as you said, they're still in the Big Six, even if they are on the fringes there.
Yeah, it's getting a little precarious, but they do have some very hardy fans that you were able to catch up with.
Very hardy fans. First off, I went out to Flannery's on 14th Street. I went for 2 games. I went to see them beat up on Burnley, and then shortly after beat up on West Ham. Now, I did not pick those teams because I thought it was a guaranteed win. It was earlier in the season. Now, someone would see them as a guaranteed win.
For the benefit of those who can't see us right now, I just noticed you did the old 6-7. Yeah.
We got to get those young listeners in here excited about us, right? What you may not have known is, I'm going to pull this into a little history here, that the term Hotspurs, for our English history buffs, Hotspurs is an homage to Sir Henry Percy, also known as Harry Hotspur, who was a major figure in the British-French 100 Years' War. He was renowned for his military acumen. He also helped subdue the Scottish, to our Scottish fans, I'm sorry out there. And he was a friend, then eventually turned foe of Henry IV. Those who love Shakespeare can hear a little about Henry Hotspur in Henry IV Part 1. He was the first Earl of Northumberland, and he was knighted by Edward III. So, little history there.
Harry Hotspur sounds like a really cool character name for something, right?
It is. It's like a Guy Ritchie movie where Harry Hotspur comes in and he's the Vinnie Jones who destroys everybody. But he was a very charismatic man. I believe the stadium was built very close to either his childhood home or something like that. But Hotspur comes from. Are
you talking about the new place or White Hart Lane?
The White Hart Lane. The
Okay.
White Hart Lane. That's where the Hotspurs came in there. So yes,
Gotcha.
not the new place there, but huge, significant figure in history at a really big time in the 1300s. So. Little history.
I
there.
remember it well.
Going back, but back to the games itself. We got a chance to meet a lot of Tottenham fans at both games, and what I found very interesting is, like with the other teams, that it was a player that brought some of the fans in, and that player was Gareth Bale. And you know Gareth Bale, the Welshman who...
Yes, of course.
Amazing player. He was transcendent and really brought in a few of these fans here. So I talked to Sachin Patel, I talked to Harrison Stratton and Brandon Troiler, all who mentioned Gareth Bale, but also have been lifelong fans. Sach, why are you a fan of the Tottenham Hotspurs?
Well, it's not exactly like my dad gave me much of a choice, but I've been supporting the team since I was 10, 11 years old. He grew up in England, even though he grew up in the Midlands, so probably shouldn't have been a Tottenham fan, but it's something that Martin Chivers made him fall in love with. And so, growing up, the Prem was always on, and I can kind of distinctly remember the 2010, 2011 season where Tottenham had beaten Man City on the last match of the season to qualify for the Champions League for the first time. And, after that, my dad surprised me with an open training in San Jose that, got to take photos with Gareth Bale, Luka Modric, and that following season, he'd pull me out of school to watch that little Champions League run that we had, and the rest, as they say, is kind of history.
The seed was planted.
Oh, without a doubt.
What team are you a fan of and why?
Tottenham. So I became a Tottenham fan. First time I watched him, probably about 8 years old. Gareth Bale. That's how I became a Tottenham fan, basically.
All right, Brandon. And what team are you a fan of and why?
The Tottenham Hotspur, because when I was a little kid, I really liked dragons, and Gareth Bale was playing for Tottenham Hotspur, and he's got a dragon on his flag, and I stuck with it ever since.
And that leaves me, there's another question there. For Americans or people just trying to get into soccer, why should they choose Tottenham?
Okay, why should I choose Tottenham? Community, togetherness, and we're always the underdogs. And if you like to root for the underdogs, root for us, because we're not going to disappoint.
There you go. And why should you? You gave a shout out earlier to the Montclair bars. Talk a little about what's your favorite bar.
Well, so Montclair Spurs. Yeah, Montclair Spurs is at Pineapple Express in Montclair, New Jersey. Fantastic group of people. And it just started a little over a year ago, and it's grown very much. It's actually one of the fastest growing aspects of Spurs in America. So go check out Pineapple Express in Montclair, and then also check out Flannery's in New York City, because it's a great time too. You can't go wrong with either one.
And in fact, Mr. Castles, I have become so ensconced in the Montclair Spurs. Again, people can't see because we're not on video, but I've got my Montclair Spurs sweatshirt. I have been now to 3 consecutive matches, a win, a loss, and a draw, not necessarily in that order. Caught up with the Montclair Spurs co-founders, fellows named Luke Parker Bowles, who swore to me that he's the Queen's nephew, and also Ritesh Patel, and some other fans. You mentioned 1963. I found a guy named Peter who's been a fan of the Hotspurs since 1963. We can't accuse him of jumping on the bandwagon.
That's what
because
I was wondering.
I think he was probably a young lad, a wee lad back then. But we'll hear from him. And we've got a few others, too, that I ran into at the Pineapple Express in Montclair, New Jersey. Very cool barbecue joint, really good stuff. And, of course, the Bloody Marys are to die for on a match morning.
And so tune in to a future episode for that, guys. And going back, I wanted to throw out a little bit. Gareth Bale brings all of the kids to the yard.
Like Khalees and the milkshake. Oh, man.
There is another great American player that played there, Clint Dempsey, who's one of my favorites, similar to Tim Howard, brought Everton fans. Clint Dempsey was one that's brought in some of our generation of players. Clint Dempsey is a U.S. men's national team treasure. He was a huge part of those teams back in the 2000s.
And it's funny, they really haven't had a whole lot of Americans, Friedel and Keller, the goalkeepers. Other than them and Clint, it's been few and far between for the red, white, and blue.
Yeah, they have not. There's not a ton of Americans in the Premier League, but when you get one in there and they're really good like Clint was, it's a good reason to join the team. I had a chance to talk with Matthew Nairn and Mikey Romero at halftime of the Spurs win over the Burnley, just to get a little bit of why they chose the Hotspurs. Why are you a fan of Spurs?
I became a fan due to Americans overseas. Clint Dempsey was one of our big players, and I followed him all throughout his career, but Spurs is where I landed.
Very nice, very nice. American, he's my favorite player too. Why did you become a Spurs fan?
So some of my family supported Spurs, so from the historical part, my nan was born in North London, so I got history to the club that way.
Very nice, very nice. And what would you say the characteristics are of a Spurs fan?
I think that's hard to say because it's such an international club. You can compare South Korea or Singapore or anywhere so I think as a fan, we just want to see good football, see our team do well and kind of hope from there, really.
And what would you say?
Persistency. We've been down for so long. We've waited for a trophy. We finally got it, but that doesn't stop us. We continue and we're trying to grow bigger and bigger and bigger. We're a big club. To others, we may not be, but to us, we are a massive club.
And as an American who doesn't have a team, why should I pick Spurs to be a fan of?
It's like a boyhood club, It's a club that not many people look over, but they're as big as any other of the big six. We're included in the big six, but we are there. We need to continue on our top four pursuit, and that's where we should be always, top four.
In Europe. Well, why should I become a Spurs fan?
Well, I think we've had 17 years of pain and you win Europa League, so we're champions of Europe, so we've actually started success. But also looking at the history of the club, we've won a lot of trophies, with third now, Europa League final. We were the first English club to do the European double, so there's a lot of history, plus we've got a great stadium and an American culture of Brad Friedel, Clint Dempsey. There's been some really good players, even Yedlin played for us at right back for a long time ago. So definitely an American style as well.
And, Sean, Mikey, like Sachin, who we heard from earlier, born into Spurs fandom. But that's not how everybody comes across a team, right?
No, it's not how everyone does. But it's a way to really be a dyed-in-the-wool fan. I know I got passed on Jets fandom to me. I don't know if you've had any family members pass on their fandom. I know that my brother is like, I'm not going to pass off Jets fandom to my children.
No, I intentionally root for teams that family members do not like because I'm a contrarian. So my dad, who grew up in Philly, big fan of the Phillies, 76ers, Eagles, not for me. My grandfather, God rest his soul, was a big Dolphins fan, and I appreciated the Dolphins of the 70s, but I'm a Giants, true blue. Yankees, not so much, but the Mets and the Nets, because the Nets used to play in New Jersey, and I used to be able to go to see them when they were at the Rutgers Athletic Center back in the day, and the Devils. And I figured any team stupid enough, I was in, high school, middle school, when the Devils moved from Colorado. Any team dumb enough to come play in my backyard deserves my support. And, of course, I've, lived through 3 Stanley Cups, so it's been very interesting, and I've seen the Giants win 4 Super Bowls, including 2 in person, which has been, an absolute joy. Not so much lately, but that's a story for another day.
And how did your dad handle that? Because Philly and New York Giants are, right at each other's throats.
He had no choice. He had no choice.
He loved you anyway.
Eagles. No, you root for them if you want. That's fine. But I need to pick. I'm a Jersey kid, closer to New York than Philly. And it just seemed right to me that I should be rooting. I love Tug McGraw, so I had to root for the Mets. The Nets, again, playing in our backyard, have to root for them instead of the Knicks. And not for nothing, but for most of the last 25 years, it was a pretty good payback.
It was. The Giants have had until recently, a stellar run of success. But we won't go into that.
No, we're not going to talk about that.
We'll go back into soccer here.
I want to stay in a good mood.
Exactly. We're going to talk. We'll go back to Tottenham, and both games I went to were wins. Again, I'll say that there, so a little positivity. I spoke to Louis Whittle and Sammy Glatzel, who are both British expats living in America.
You had to say Pats, huh?
I had to say Pats. The Giants beat them, but
Twice.
Twice is right. But Louis and Sammy gave me a little insight of being born into Tottenham fandom and also moving overseas and cheering in the States. What team are you a fan of?
Tottenham.
And why are you a fan of Tottenham Hotspur?
It's on my dad's side of the family. I grew up in England. I didn't grow up in Tottenham, but my dad's family grew up in the Tottenham area. So it's just passed down by generation.
And what would you say is the makeup of a Tottenham fan? You loyal, or you guys outrageous?
I think Tottenham fans are loyal. I think a bit. Maybe a bit negative, to be honest. I think it's kind of part of being a Tottenham fan is that not a lot of we haven't won in a long time. I haven't won a lot of trophies. Won one last year, but it's been kind of a constant struggle, I'd say, for 30, 40, 50 years. So. Yeah.
And what would you say is the hitting on the same thing? What's the biggest sentiment going into each game? What is match day? Are you excited? Are you on the first day of the season?
I'm very excited always. I think that the thing with Tottenham is it's always been very exciting. Even if we're not always winning, the game is always going to be good. And it's kind of the team's culture over the long term has been to kind of play like a more risky style, or to play very attacking, hopeful style of play. Rather than being like a very negative team, I'd say.
All right. Sammy, what team are you a fan of and why?
I'm a Tottenham Hotspur fan. My dad grew up in North London. I didn't grow up in London, but I moved back to London for school, and one of my best friends is a massive Spurs fan. So when I moved back to London, I started going to games loads, and that was about nearly 10 years ago now.
And so you've been a fan for 10 years, or
I've been a fan for slightly longer, but like I've been a serious fan for about 10 years.
And are you here in the States now, or are you just visiting for the weekend?
So I moved to New York about 6 months ago, and I sublet a flat, which is quite literally opposite us right now, for 2 months.
So it's just kismet.
And it was purely coincidental, but I was living here on my own. My girlfriend hadn't arrived here yet, and I realized that the Spurs pub was a mere 15 meters from my front door. So when I was jet lagged and I was waking up really early in the morning, I could go to the 7:30 kickoff.
Now, how busy is here at the 7:30 kickoff? Is it?
It's surprisingly busy. I am surprised how busy it is. I think it's really lovely seeing fans care. I think there's like a bit of a pernicious attitude to foreign fans in the UK, and like, you know, the idea of like you can't be a real fan unless you're from the country. I detest to watch any man drink a Guinness at 7:30 in the morning and watch Spurs lose 2-1 to some team and not see them as true fans.
And Mr. Castle, speaking of drinking a Guinness or 3 at 7:30 in the morning, why not? Flannery's. What a place, huh?
Flannery's was fantastic. I had a chance to see it twice over at 205 West 14th Street. They were very welcoming. The bar was hopping. I will say I got there for the second game, which was the West Ham game. About a few minutes before it opened up, there was a line. There was a big line.
Love that.
Love that. So I knew immediately I was going to be in for something. And actually, while I was in line, I met Sachin Patel and chatted a little bit with him. You know, there's a little donut shop next door. A young girl was asking me questions about what I was doing there with a recorder. You know, but people were gearing up and excited to get inside. And, you know, it's 10 a.m. It's early. There was a mix of genders. As many women as there were men. It filled up, I would say, by game time, it was full. And it's a pretty big place. Like O'Halen's, Flannery's has a full bar, and then there's a back room. And all of it was standing room only. People were singing. You know, there was Mickey Van de Ven scored, and Bergdahl scored, and there was lots of singing of Mickey Van de Ven and for Bergdahl, who's a relatively new player. So people were coming from all over to just enjoy the Spurs games at this bar. And again, standing room. I met one guy who I didn't get an interview with who was in from San Francisco. And he was like, I just wanted to see the game and see what the atmosphere is like. And unfortunately, I tried to record, but you know, there's all the noise going on, so you can't really hear. But he was so impressed. He's like, this is exactly why I'm a fan. You know, like Sammy, who is a British expat we just spoke with, who had just moved here from England. He was really impressed. He gave high praise of Flannery. He said, this is as good as going to the games in North London. So I just need to throw a shout out to Flannery's and their team and their owner for really throwing a great experience. And really, everyone was positive, everyone on the same page. I think I had my toe stepped on 3 or 4 times. And you know what? It wasn't a big deal. Everyone's like, no problem. Sorry about that. No problem. I'd bump into people.
There's no malice intended.
There's no malice. There wasn't any fans of the rival team. Right. So they say, I want to put this very clearly, if you're going to go to Flannery's during a Tottenham game, it's not really considered good or polite. If they're playing Manchester United, you come in there with your Man United clothes. If they're playing Manchester City, you're going in there with your Sky Blues. It is a Tottenham bar. So it was very clear of that. But I want to talk, we got Harrison and his friend Anthony Verdon. And now Anthony is really more of a Series A fan. So I didn't get much bites from him. And later on, when we get into the Series A teams and the Italian teams, we'll hear from Anthony. But they came all the way in. They came from out of the city to attend the game. So really, again, all walks of life coming in here, enjoying the game at Flannery's. And we'll hear from Harrison and a few of the other guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to come here at least a couple times throughout the season to watch the game. Even if it's like a 10 o'clock game, it's still packed out, and supporters are lively, singing going on. So
yeah, people are getting really into
it's a great experience, especially now the 12:30 game. Like, it's probably the most like alive I've seen it in a while. So
it gets pretty darn packed. So describe to me what are the characteristics of a Tottenham fan?
You have to be, I'd say resilient, just because we haven't won anything. I mean, other than last year, being a supporter, I've watched my team win 1 trophies in 15 years. So I say be being resilient and just being a loyal supporter.
And what does, you guys both seem like big soccer fans, what does match day look like for you? Is it a weekend? Do you come out for weekdays things? What do you guys do to come out and watch and enjoy soccer?
I would say most of the time it's a weekend thing for me, because I'm working during the week, but I always do kind of pin the live score on the weekday games, especially like Champions League games or national team games. I always kind of pin the score when I'm working, just to like kind of see like how we're doing. But the weekend games are always the best. Even if I'm in the city or if I'm back at home, if like I'm around family, Sunday mornings are big for Serie A, like a Sunday afternoon. It's usually kind of just watching the Serie A games like all morning, afternoon, and then just having like a Sunday sauce kind of thing, and like right after. That's the typical Sunday or Saturday for my family. But if I'm around the city and there's a Tottenham game going on, then I'll come here. It's very lively. It's a really fun way to spend your afternoon. It's a ton of fun.
Flannery's, you're from England. You've experienced all the bars here. Talk of Flannery's. Why should people come out and watch games here? What is the experience like?
I mean, it's really cool looking at the people that work behind the bar, the owners, the people that work there, and they are die-hard Spurs fans. They're going through the highs and lows of the game, as well as the kind of customers who are buying the beers, and it's really lovely to see. And it's a group of people that turn out week in, week out to watch Spurs. You don't have to be in England to be a Spurs fan, so it's really special to see.
You get several hundred new friends after joining.
Everyone's super friendly because basically it's only Spurs fans in there as well. So there's no argy-bargy, there's no ag because everyone's hoping for the same result.
And I gotta say, for those listening in here, it really is a fun atmosphere.
It's really fun. And I think like what I've heard before I moved here is that a lot of the bars for specific clubs put up the memorabilia and take it down in the week, so they can be a kind of like a more generalist bar throughout the week, and then they pop up on a Saturday or a Sunday as a specific club bar.
Yeah.
They have painted on the door to dare us to do, or whatever the club slogan is. So like this is a 365, 24/7 Spurs pub.
I told them, hey, I want to come out here and do a little recording, and not video, but only audio. They literally told me, are you a fan of any other team? And I'm like, no, that's the whole point. And they're like, okay, good, because if
it's
you were...
It's a proper supporters club.
Yeah,
it's a proper supporters club. Yeah.
Because sometimes that happens, hopefully not ever, but yeah, people get a little rowdy. But it's a really wonderful experience. And Marc, it really was an amazing experience. Everyone was having a great time, pulling in the same direction. But I need to point out again that they were playing two of the worst teams this year in the Premier League, in Burnley and West Ham. So it was almost a guaranteed win. And Tottenham has a history of traumatizing their fans, a tortured fan base, a lot of ups and downs. 1 minute they're doing really great, but just to have the rug pulled out, very Charlie Brown-esque. There is actually a phrase that was coined to describe the trauma of the club's fortunes. Because I've heard a term when I'm listening to soccer podcasts, especially The Guardian, Spursy. It's something very Spursy. What does that mean? What does it mean to be Spursy?
Spursy means that if you're cooking a recipe and you have all the right ingredients, but you fuck up the end result, then I think that's how I would describe Spursy. It's getting really, really close to the right answer and then seemingly making the wrong decision and ending up in the wrong place.
I've heard the term Spursy before. Again,
Yeah.
I'm learning.
Yeah.
What does the term Spursy mean?
So to other fans, Spursy means that you are you get right to the moment where you're going to win, and then you choke. Something happens. You're up 2-0, and then all of a sudden you lose 3-2. Or you make it to the final, and then you lose. That's a Spursy thing to do. Yeah.
Sean, it's interesting, this whole Spursy thing conjures thoughts of that's so Jets. And there's no other team that you can think of stateside that really qualifies because, you think about all the futility that they have suffered through this New York Jets National Football League team. Forget about the fact that they haven't reached the Super Bowl in 57 years. They haven't made the playoffs in over a decade, and that is really almost impossible. You have to, by accident, you think you back in at some point. We see teams now reaching the playoffs with under 500 records, but they have been so awful, so Jetsy, that they can't even get into the Super Bowl tournament. It's that bad, and I think that's kind of how those fans can relate to the Spurs fan. because Spursy and Jetsy are very, very similar.
Very, very similar. As a Jets fan, I have many other fellow Jets fans. We play in a fantasy football league together like many Jets fans, and it's called the Butt Fumble because the Butt Fumble is one of the most iconic Jets plays ever, which is really sad.
Poor Marc Sanchez will never, ever escape the vortex of that one play. He could have won X amount of playoff games, and he did win several on the road, which not very many Jets quarterbacks have done in franchise history, but he goes down, forget about the incident that he had in Indianapolis, he goes down in the annals as the butt fumble quarterback, and that's going to be a hard one to shake.
It's iconic. It really is iconic, but Tottenham fans may be traumatized, but they still base their week and their schedules off of the upcoming games. Like, even though their hearts are ripped out, they still love their team, and they're like, okay, next Sunday, what am I going to do? Next Wednesday, what am I going to do? And they're scheduling it out. You know, I got a chance to talk to Sachin while waiting in line, and he was meeting up with his friends. They're all gathering to come and watch the game there, and he even got his girlfriend to become a Spurs fan. And this is a little tough for me because I have tried to get my wife, Kendra, to become a Rams fan. No, she's a Pats fan. Try to get her a Yankees fan, as you've heard before. No chance whatsoever she's a Red Sox fan. I did get her to cheer for Duke, but that was because she had them in a tourney pool that she would win if Duke won. Mm-hmm. Sachin gets some nice digs talking about rivals, get some nice digs at the rival Chelsea, and his family happens to be a bunch of Chelsea fans. So let's hear from Sachin here. Each week, 1 to 2 matches. What does match day look like for you?
Typically with my mates in Hoboken, but, you know, it's my best friends from college are all Tottenham fans, some of which I'll be watching the match with today. You know, we'll be chopping it up with my dad in our family group chat, even though half of us are Spurs, half of us are Chelsea. And then, you know, I've convinced every one of my other friends to, you know, endure a lifelong suffering of being a Spurs fan, with my girlfriend being included in that now. So, you know, it's a non-negotiable for me.
You convinced your girlfriend to become a Spurs fan?
I took her to the North London Derby last year, and, you know, after that, I mean, I said, like, you got to know what my true love in life is. And, but, you know, I'm like, you can be at that same exact level, but unfortunately I'm stuck with this team until I die, whether I like it or not.
And what is it like being you? So you got half your family is Chelsea fans. What is the dynamics there? Because two London teams.
Oh, we deal with a lot of shit from them. It's just me and my dad, my brother, his brother, my cousin. They're all Chelsea fans, and the bane of my existence.
And when is the Chelsea Tottenham matchup next Tottenham?
I think it's in probably like a month and a half, 2 months.
Do you guys get together for that, or all watch together?
God no. I don't want to watch it with any of them. I mean, Mulligan's is owned by a Chelsea fan, so I get enough stick from those guys as it is. But you know, that's the thing is I like to be with my people.
And Sean, it really is a family affair. Husbands and wives, fathers and sons, mothers and daughters, they all show up, you know, and it's like that to a degree here in the States with the American major sports franchises, but there's nothing like world soccer and the fandom of those people, is there?
No, there's not. And not every family has, you know, a Chelsea fan and a Tottenham fan are at each other's throats, and they have to deal with that every couple times a year. I actually had met Claire Rudder, who is in New York with her husband, and she has never missed a match. Claire is a North London local, and they had to see the Burnley game. It was, you know, in August. They were not going to miss that. And Claire told me a little bit about what the Tottenham matches are like and what it's like in England rooting for the Spurs. Walk me through your match day. You're getting up, you're in the UK. What does match day look like?
So match day for us, it's normally my other half sends me down to Tesco's, which is our equivalent of Walmart, and it's like, I want some beers or ciders. I normally get like hot dogs, burgers, that kind of food, so it's pretty easy to do, popcorn and all other kinds of snacks. I set up the lounge area for him to sit and watch a game if he's at home, or he'll basically say to me, I'm off with the boys down the pub, literally. leaves me at home with the children, so we have the game on the TV at home whilst he's at the pub with the boys, because the thing that I love about New York as well, and this is our second time coming to Flannery's, is the fact that we can bring our children here. In the UK, if we were to take them to a pub, it can be very hustle and bustle because everyone's so passionate about the game. If it doesn't give the results that they want, sometimes they get really upset and really angry. Whereas it's not ideal with kids running around, and crying and stuff. So that's kind of the scenario. It's true though.
And Sean, to be fair, there are many, many establishments that are very welcoming of the younger demographic. In fact, our friends in Montclair, the Pineapple Express that we've been talking about, they have a raffle at halftime of every Spurs game. And when there are kids there, they have a children's raffle. Now, they are not raffling off children, mind you, but age-appropriate items for the kids in attendance. It's actually kind of cool.
That's awesome. That's a great way to spend the day with a family, enjoying soccer out at the bars there, and fun for the whole family. We've been talking about the bar scene experience here in New York and New Jersey, but I got to talk to a couple guys about the stadium experience, about what it's like actually going to the Tottenham Hotspur stadium. So let's hear from Brandon, Harrison, and Sachin on that. Have you ever had any chance to go out to London, see any of the games there, any chance to be in London? And
yes, I have, actually. And the stadium is majestic. Oh, it is beautiful, man. Oh, I genuinely was awestruck when I went there for the first time. I went there, it's actually Ndombele's debut goal when I was there. I think it was in 2019.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a beautiful stadium, beautiful people really all around. This fandom is fantastic.
Yeah, so I've been overseas. I've been to 3 Spurs games, and while there, I've been to a couple Crystal Palace games, Fulham, West Ham. So I try to go at least once a season the last couple of years. And I will say, I tell all my friends, it's probably the best sporting experience I have been to, and I'm not just saying that. It's different compared to an American football game, baseball, basketball. It's a different beast.
What is game day like in England when you're watching?
So depending if it was home or away. At home, luckily, I don't have a season ticket, but I often go to games. So it would be drinks on the Tottenham High Road and then into the stadium. And then if we win, drinks afterwards. If it's an away game, it's kind of like a pub lock-in for a number of hours. Win or lose, probably drinking afterwards quite a lot. And then here it's slightly different. I think today is a great day because it's a Saturday kickoff after midday, which makes me feel less bad about having a drink in the morning. So today I feel like we're going to get 3 or 4 of these this season on a Saturday. So it was, yeah.
It's spending and putting money back and loving the club.
Exactly.
I got the last question here is for American fans or people, because this is about people who really don't know soccer but want to get into it. Why should they choose Tottenham? Why should they become Tottenham fans?
I think there's a few. I mean, sometimes you're born into it, so you don't really get a choice. If you get to pick, the reason I would tell you to vouch for Tottenham is if you're lucky enough to find yourself in London and you have time to go to a Tottenham game, if you go, say the game's at 3 p.m. and you go at 10 o'clock in the morning and you're on the Tottenham High Road and you have an English breakfast and you speak to the person that runs the cafe, there'll be a diehard Spurs fan, and then you'll go to the pub and it'll be a dodgy Spurs pub in Tottenham, and the drinks will be cheap, and the people behind the bar will be diehard Spurs fans, and you go to one of the best stadiums in the world at the minute.
I hear it's really nice.
We've spent a lot of money on buying the best stadium in the world fundamentally. So it's one of the newest, biggest stadiums in London, and it's a really special experience.
And going, not only watching at the bars, you've clearly been to some games out in North London. What is game day atmosphere like though?
Game day's fantastic. My first ever Premier League match, I scalped a ticket off Twitter for £50, and it was a grandfather and his son that are season ticket holders. The son had to take care of his little one, so they thought I was a reliable enough person to sell the ticket to, and chopping it up, have a couple pints. Christian Eriksen scores within 8 seconds, and we take down Jose Mourinho's Manchester United. And you can always find great friends, whether that's the pre-match atmosphere, and that was at Wembley, which was different than going to a match day, at Hotspur away. But That's the thing is, you go to any of the different pubs, and whether they're from, the surrounding area, whether they're from the United States, because we all support the same team, nobody's going to turn away from having a nice chit chat with you.
They vetted you? They actually vetted you to make sure that you were going to be
Yeah, they're like, you're not just going to go give the ticket to anyone, right?
It's a real pleasure to hear about what an amazing in-stadium experiences that the Premier League teams have. My first ever soccer game experience was DC United in the 90s with my friend John Coleman, and it was wonderful. Everyone was cheering along. DC United was really good back then. I actually have been to one Premier League game. 2019, went to West Ham Crystal Palace, and I don't know why, but I just expected it to be a little more boorish. I expected there to be a lot of drunkenness, a lot of, maybe a few fights. Everyone was well behaved. Everyone watched the game. Everyone was really nice to each other, which is such a stark contrast from my experience going to NFL games. Drunken fights, people yelling obscenities at each other. I can recall going to a Pats Jets game in the 90s where there were fights. I saw a 40-year-old man fighting with a teenager, but it was capped off by, we're sitting there in the open area on the lower level, and I hear a bang, and I look up, and there's a guy who stands up, and his head just starts bleeding. What had happened was somebody in the upper echelons had taken off somebody's Patriots helmet and thrown it down there because they were mad at them, and it hit somebody, and I'm still traumatized by that. It's not a fun experience. I don't want to go see fights. I don't want to see people behaving poorly. I want to be having a unifying experience, if you will. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I absolutely get it. I remember covering a Giants-Eagles playoff game several years ago, and I have Jersey plates on my car. So when you're in Philly, you don't know if it's North Jersey or South Jersey, but the news vans for the New York City stations, very clearly marked and with New York plates. The stuff that I found on those news vans and several other cars with New York license plates coming out of the stadium after the game, the fluids, the garbage.
Gross.
It was so disgusting. And, they have done a great job on the world soccer stage of decreasing the incidence of hooliganism. That has been a huge
problem.
Initiative.
Used to be a huge problem.
Not so much anymore. I think we're worse now here in the States when it comes to stuff like that. You see when the Giants play the Dodgers in baseball and some of these
fans getting knocked out.
It happens every week at whatever NFL venue you want to talk about. And a lot of it is, the people who can't hold their liquor. But I'm a big believer that what you do drunk is what you would do sober without the excuse.
It's just bad behavior amplified, and those people already had the bad behavior. What Britain has gotten right is that there's no selling beer in the stands. You have to do it in the hallways. There's not enough time to get really liquored up, and they don't do it. It's a 90-minute game, so it's really only 2 hours. You're not sitting there 4 hours. There's no tailgating. Now, tailgating's really fun. I'm not knocking, but just the level of drunkenness that comes in after the tailgating. But I'm going to digress here and go into, I put a few of the Tottenham fans on the spot and was asking what kind of characteristics came to mind about what does it mean to be a Tottenham Spurs fan? Why should people join? What are the characteristics? What is this broad brush you're going to be painted with? Just like Eagles fans are going to be tabled with being unruly and fighting, and Jets fans...
They threw snowballs at Santa Claus.
I thought it was batteries, too. We asked them to paint the broad brush. What does that mean for Tottenham? And let's hear from Harrison and Sammy and Sachin about that. What are the characteristics of a Tottenham fan?
You have to be, I'd say resilient just because we haven't won anything. I mean, other than last year, being a supporter, I've watched my team win 1 trophies in 15 years. So I say being resilient and just being a loyal supporter.
So tell me a little bit for American fans who are like, what is a fan of? What are the characteristics of a Tottenham fan?
Well, we obviously won something now, so it's slightly less painful. I think for a long time we were seen as like quite lovable losers who were quite close to glory but never really netted out in the right place. That's all changed after the summer. I think there's you've got to be ready to kind of get your heart broken at least a few times every year, because we've often felt very let down by the ownership and the management of the club, and then often the players as well. But I think we used to be a lovable loser, but I think we might be on the up now.
How would you describe, for the general audience, what are the characteristics of a Tottenham Spurs fan?
Be brave, be bold, be adventurous. I mean, that's why it's tattooed on me. Adere es facare, to dare is to do. I mean, it's a team that, prior to last season, we hadn't really experienced that quote-unquote silverware success. And so, it's about loyalty, it's about perseverance, it's about, never giving up, but also doing it in a distinct kind of way.
Describe to me the typical Tottenham fan.
So the typical Tottenham fan, we like everyone apart from the A team, which is the Dirty Reds. We don't hold grudges against everyone. We will, we'll always be there for everyone. We're friendly. And to be honest with you, there is a few of them fans that we don't mind. We'll have banter with them. It's when they cross the line, you understand that there's you're crap and rubbish, stuff like that. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
You can say whatever you want. You can say whatever, yeah.
You can say stuff like that to them, and banter. But it's when they get aggressive. That's the thing that sometimes. I'd say a Tottenham fan is quite loving, caring, supportive of others. Will build others up. We've had years of heartache. We've come back with this awesome trophy. The other night when we were in the air, unfortunately we lost to PSG, but to get there was epic and a great
You
turn.
brought them to a shootout. I mean, considered the best team in the league, you brought them to the shootout.
To be honest with you, have you even seen England in penalties? Literally, we all sit there with his fingers over his eyes and hiding behind cushions and pillows, and literally we've got flags on, in front of us, and we're like, oh my God, I don't want to watch it.
Why should I become a Spurs fan?
Because you seem like the type of person that got a nice personality. You're lovely, you're bubbly, you want to be involved with stuff, you have that passion about you. I think following a team like this, it gives you belief, hope, inspiration. There's some great players on that pitch. My favourite is Richarlison. Just watch him from mental health struggles to coming back today and scoring the first goal within the first 15 minutes. Come on, our boys have got it.
And if I'm an American, I'm looking forward to getting into soccer, why should I become a Tottenham fan?
You know what? Because it's a team that has amazing support worldwide, and it's not, you can go and be a Man City fan and Liverpool fan, you're guaranteed to win, but a Tottenham fan, I think is, you get a bit more of the ups and downs. And yeah, I don't know. Tottenham fans are just very enthusiastic, love it through, winning, losing. Honestly, I think it's just a great fan culture, and great team to support.
That leads me to the next question. How would you describe Spurs fans? How would you describe the fandom?
Man, we've been through so much turmoil, so much pain, so much suffering as a collective that we just all bond together, and the little moments are what counts. And then we finally got a big moment last year with a Europa League final win, and it was phenomenal. And you know what? It's only up from here.
This has been the Ultra World Podcast, the soccer fan's voice from the stands, with your hosts, Marc and Sean Castles. Our executive producer is Sue Zizza. Marc and Sean Castles are co-producers. David Shin is our master engineer. Assistant producer Avery Gehrig, and I'm Alicia Antwine. To be a guest on the Ultra World Podcast or learn all about sponsorship opportunities, send an email to ultraworldpod@gmail.com. Be sure to follow the show on all the social media platforms at Ultra World Pod. Copyright 2026. All rights reserved, Ultra World Podcast, LLC.